Good afternoon. My name is Jody Weiler from Great Garment Graphics, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to those of you joining us today. Our presenter today is Colleen Young, Marketing Manager from Stalls ID Direct. Colleen comes to Great Garment Graphics with over 18 years of experience, anywhere from marketing from industrial to retail. More importantly, for the webinar today, she's organized trade show exhibits as well as attended trade shows and is very excited today to give her insight to optimizing your trade show experience. So without further ado, I will now turn the floor over. Hello, Colleen, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Jody. Thanks for the introduction. Greatly appreciated. Welcome to everybody. We're going to keep this webinar brief, but please enjoy the experience. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and relax. And we're going to walk through getting the most out of a trade show experience. Today we're going to talk about being prepared, working the floor, networking. We're going to dabble into the virtual trade shows, and we're also going to talk about trade show follow-up. It's kind of today, the trade show industry has really grown in different ways. When I first started in marketing, my first job in marketing, I worked for an industrial tool company, an ergonomic handheld tool company. And they produce tools that they use on the assembly lines at General Motors and Ford Motor Company. We used to attend an exhibit at one trade show a year. And that trade show was held in Chicago, massive trade show floor. We had a huge booth, and we came in as exhibitors and had somebody set up the booth for us. And then, we worked the show floor, and we networked with attendees, and then we tore down the booth. And then my second foray into trade shows was from a conferencing standpoint, and I worked with the Society of Manufacturing Engineers and put together conferences alongside of trade shows. So in other words, when you attend a trade show, those conferences where they have industry experts speaking, I would organize and recruit those speakers and help them put their presentation together. So kind of seen trade shows morph throughout the years, and now they're more virtual trade shows, and the larger shows have really scaled back for various reasons. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys today about is the pre-show preparation. And, to some of you, when we're looking at going to a trade show from the perspective of an attendee, and that's the way I'm going to present this webinar in the beginning, is how to attend a trade show as an attendee. And that may seem very simple. Hey, I go to a trade show, I show up, I walk around the floor, and then I come back to the office. People say, hey, how was your trip? I say good, and then I go about my day. But nowadays, when you attend a trade show, it seems that more and more businesses have cut their travel budgets. And that being said, there's more pressure on when you attend a trade show. They expect you to bring back good information. They expect results from you going to these shows. So the first part of this webinar, I'm going to present to you as if I were the attendee going to the show. The second part of the webinar, when we talk about virtual trade shows, I'm going to take a different stance. I'm going to switch it up on you, and I'm going to present virtual trade shows from an exhibitor standpoint. When we go into follow-up, we're going to go through all of it together. So let's go with the pre-show preparation. Again, it used to be that you could travel to a show or a conference, you come back into the office, everybody would be, oh, hey, how'd it go? How's your trip? What'd you see? What'd you do? You responded, yeah, oh, hey, had a great time, learned a lot, and then you went on about your day. But now, today, companies are very into the financial crunch, and travel budgets have been slashed, which means if you get permission to travel to a trade show for whatever reason, you are expected to bring back results, and you're expected to turn those results into sales. So let's get started. How do we get those proven results? So how do we prepare to actually go to a trade show? What are the things you look at? And before attending a show, you need to review its promotional materials to find out who's going to be exhibiting. You've got to determine what booths you want to visit and create a map. And I know that sounds silly, but what you want to do is you want to go, if it's a major trade show, when you go online, they'll show you their floor plan. And they'll have in that floor plan the booth names and numbers listed right on that floor plan. You want to create a map using that floor plan. That way you can navigate the show, and you can work out what vendors are located where and which vendors you really want to see. It kind of maximizes your time on the show floor. You're going to want to check on exhibitors that you're interested in before the show by reading articles about them on the web. You're going to want to try to research as much as you can about the vendors online. Trade magazines typically do a big preview of the big shows and the issue right before the show. You want to check the website. And I can't say that strong enough, because what you do and what you benefit from going to the company's website before going to the show. Nowadays, many people have names and faces out on their website. So when you go on that trade show floor and you know you want to go see somebody at the Stalls ID booth, and you know in particular you want to see Josh Ellsworth, you can go online, you can see who Josh Ellsworth is. You can put a name to that face. So when you're on the show floor, you can say, oh, hey, there he is right there. I know what he looks like. I know who I want to talk to. And you're maximizing your time on that show floor with who you want to see. You want to set goals ahead of time. So before you go to the show, you want to make sure that, okay, here's what I need to do. Make a list of goals for you and your company prior to attending the trade show. You got to keep those goals top of mind as you're wandering around that trade show floor. Once a trade show has been identified that stands to connect you with prospects, you can learn new skills or interact with vendors, outline a plan for your attendance. You got to clearly establish what it is you're hoping to accomplish, which vendors you're looking to visit, what items you need to purchase, what seminars to attend, and what thought leaders you'd like to meet or make connections with. Going in with a plan will help you stay focused and make the most of your time. Maybe there's a few booths that you would like to see, but you want to make sure that you stop at other booths for their show specials. Maybe that you just want to run in, place an order, and not at all waste your time with learning about any of the products that you've seen and know intimately. You just want to go in and drop off your order sheet because they have some great show specials. Or maybe there is in their booth an industry expert that you really want to sit and talk to for a while. That's why you got to make a good plan. So what's our next step? Just some little tips here that might make it a little bit easier for you. And I think we're experiencing some technical issues. So if you just give me 1 minute, it doesn't seem like my slides want to go through. There we go. So the next step in the pre-preparation stages is, and this sounds like a basic thing, but believe it or not, there are people who don't pre-register for shows. There are people who don't do their homework and don't know where to stay, and there's actually people, and again, this may sound trivial, but what do you wear to a trade show? So let's start with the pre-registration. You can save some time, and you can definitely save money by pre-registering, because most trade shows and conferences will knock off a percentage of the cost if you pre-register. The cost of pre-registration for early birds is much less than the cost of on-site registration. You know, in my past, when we would have conferences alongside the trade show at SME, pre-registration was always at least $150 to $200 less expensive than on-site registration. The other option is where to stay. Before you book a hotel, what you want to do, check to see if the trade show organizers have reserved a block of rooms at a discounted rate at any of the area hotels. Now that happens frequently. They do. If you jump on their websites, you know, for the big conferences, they will say, you know, we recommend that you stay at the Hampton Inn or the Radisson. While these are usually the best bet, oftentimes these hotels are very close in the vicinity, if not connected to the trade show venue. But it never hurts to shop around, especially if attending a trade show on a budget. Because again, although you want to stay as close as possible to the show, when it all comes down to the dollars and cents of it, if you can get a less expensive hotel, you might be better off with a short cab ride than just being attached to the venue. As with registration, it often pays to make reservations for transportation and lodging early. So as soon as you know you have permission to attend that show, or you know you want to attend that show, as early as possible, you want to book your hotel, you want to book your flight, and you want to actually make sure you have transportation to and from the airport and to and from the show. Because while discounts won't likely be offered for early birds with respect to travel, the payoff is usually ensuring that you end up in a hotel of your choice with a plan of action when it comes to travel. If you don't or can't book a hotel within walking distance of a trade show, make sure to include the cost of daily travel for cabs and subways and buses or rental cars into your trade show budget. And you need to plan on bringing maps or print out driving directions or walking directions ahead of time to cut back on the hassle factor. And although, you know, you're running around beforehand and you're trying to pack and you're trying to make sure you're organized and you're cleaning up your office and you're trying to wrap up those emails, you've got to make sure that you have all of that stuff with you before you go on site and you're at the hotel and you're like, I don't even know, where the nearest restaurant is that I could eat. You want to make sure you have all that prepared ahead of time. And now the last one that I'm sure some of you are giggling at, but what do you wear? Believe it or not, more and more trade shows are starting to enforce dress codes. And a lot of it is business casual. And a lot of it depends on which show you're attending. I used to do equipment shows for heavy-duty machinery. And the dress code for those shows are a lot more lax than when you're attending something like a lawyer's convention or a lawyer's conference where you have to be more professionally dressed. So you actually do want to check out the website and find out what actually is dress code for the show, what is appropriate for the show. You want to make sure that you pack comfortable shoes and plan to bring clothes that align with the dress code. And again, many of them do have that now. Check the website for details, and don't forget, it's not just about the show. The most important thing you can do is network in the evening, and you've got to make sure you have the right attire for networking and evening events. Pack only your essentials, and be sure to allow enough room in that suitcase for bringing back more than what you take. And again, this includes everything from bringing back literature to product samples, all the freebies that you can get at the show. And don't forget to wear your trade show badge at all times. I'm guilty of this. I'll have my badge on me. I'll use it to get onto the show floor, and then as soon as I'm off that show floor, I take my badge off. And that's not the right thing to do. One of the things that helps with networking is breaking the ice by saying, oh, you went to the show today? Oh, yeah, did you see, this booth? Did you see that booth? And it gets conversation going. So you always want to wear your badge, even if you're not on the trade show floor. It'll help staff identify you when you're wearing that badge. So just hotel staff, if there was a special rate, there might be some special bonuses, and people can identify you at the hotel. But the key is opening the door to the networking. That's why you always want to keep that badge on you. Next thing we're going to start talking about is efficiency on the floor. So how can you be more efficient when you walk into that trade show hall and it's a sea of exhibitors? You can't tell one from the other. How do you know what you want to do? And how do you have limited amount of time and you want to make sure that you see everything that you need to see? The time on the trade show floor is very precious. Don't feel pressured to stop by every booth or listen to every sales pitch. You're going to want to skip the irrelevant booths for those that interest you the most. When you get home with your collection of flyers, your business cards, your brochures, don't throw them away. You're going to want to put them away. And you're going to want to organize a library that shows the materials for you and your staff, folders, magazine racks, and filing cabinets, because all that information, you went to the show for a reason. You've got to make sure that you efficiently work that floor, do what you need to do, meet the right people, place the right orders, and bring back the right literature to help your business grow. Most important part of a trade show or a conference or a seminar is the networking. That's the most valuable resource. Let's talk about that for a while. With respect to networking, the first thing you need to do is step out of your comfort zone. So important to, if you're not a social butterfly, you've got to become a social butterfly at these events. You have to have business cards on you at all times. Trade shows are just flush with industry bigwigs. Meet as many as you can by being a social butterfly, attending seminar sessions, meet people in line for lunch, meet at the booth, meet in the lobby of your hotel. Make sure you have plenty of business cards on hand at all times. The next thing you want to do is attend seminars. So it's great to walk the exhibit floor and the trade show floor, but the one thing you do want to do is try to take in 1 or 2 seminars while you're there. Because trade shows aren't only home to booths. They play host to scores of interesting presentations and workshops. And you need to schedule some time to attend at least a few seminars while you're in town to get the most of that trade show investment. And I really like the seminars, and I'll tell you why. If you can scope out the seminars that are taught by and that are presented by an industry expert that you desperately want to meet for one reason or another. For example, and I use Josh Ellsworth because many of you know him in our industry. And if you email Josh at the office, he will get back with you. But the best thing you can do is be face-to-face with him, because when you're face-to-face with him, you can tell him your exact issue, you can get his thoughts, and you guys can interact probably for a longer period of time and start developing a relationship with one another versus just on an email basis. If you wanted some extra time with an industry expert, if you wanted to make suggestions or get some help from them, those seminars are the perfect opportunity because they're usually 25 to 30 people in a room, sometimes more, but you have the ability to talk to the speaker immediately following their presentation. So let's get into the virtual trade show. So now we're going to switch our stance here. We talked lightly about what it's like to attend the trade show, the pre-show preparation, what you really need to do with setting your goals and making your travel plans and wearing your comfortable clothes and attending the seminars and meeting all the right people. So how about the virtual trade shows? How do you as an exhibitor interact with your audience from a virtual trade show? And are these virtual trade shows, they're a new thing, are they really worthwhile? So let's switch gears now. Let's talk about virtual trade shows from an exhibitor perspective versus an attendee perspective. So believe it or not, of course, if there's virtual trade shows, somebody has already established virtual trade show best practices. Let's walk through those. Let's understand the difference between the physical and the virtual trade show. Let's see how we can make you stand out in a crowd in the virtual world. And let's see how you can be strategic with your content. Let's tackle one at a time, understanding the difference between the virtual and the physical. Now that seems obvious, doesn't it? In a physical event, your clues and cues are obvious. Someone walks into your booth, you greet them, you introduce yourself. But in a virtual event, the cues are kind of a bit more subtle, aren't they? Do you invite every single booth visitor in for a private chat? You probably don't want to. Instead, you'll want to use clues about the visitor's interest, which virtual trade shows are great at tracking. You need to engage only select visitors who are showing the most interest. In addition, you need to remember that your virtual booth visitors are online, which means you can leverage the wealth of your resources online that are available to you in your booth as well as out on your website. You want to try to keep the content within your booth so that you're not taking visitors away to another browser window. In other words, if you have the appropriate content in your virtual booth, you don't want to move those people around too much. You want to do a good follow-up with them. Send them a follow-up email with a link to your website. Send them a follow-up link to the actual product that they're looking for. What you don't want to do is have several windows open on the internet and jumping from your booth to your website to your Facebook page. You want to try to keep people in one place. The other thing you want to do in a virtual trade show is you want to stand out. You need to stand out from the crowd. So how do you do that? Because your booth is going to be adjacent in a virtual sense to many of your competitors' booths. So you got to do something different so that your booth is remembered. So instead of promoting why your product is the best, why don't you invite visitors into a conversation about the business problem that your product addresses? So in other words, what product do you make that solves a problem that's going on in the industry? And get that interaction, that one-on-one between the booth attendee and yourself. A funny video to welcome visitors can also work well. Make sure you bring your top product experts and staffers, as interaction with staffers can distinguish one virtual booth from the next. The next thing you want to do is be strategic with that booth content. You want to spend time and energy behind a great content plan. Don't just take your entire library of marketing collateral and upload it to that site. You want to make sure that you're getting the right people involved in this virtual trade show. You want to consider the theme of the virtual trade show and pick your best content that's directly relevant to the theme. Also, you're going to want to select content that's timely. Be sure to make sure that your content is available in many different flavors. In other words, people learn different. Some people learn by reading white papers. Some people like to see an instructional video. Some people want a podcast. Some people want on-demand. So different people have different preferences, and you want to make sure that your content is actually encompassing all those means of how people would get their information. Go a little bit further into the best practices. Let's talk about a consistent message. Let's talk about aligning roles and generating excitement with news. Let's talk about that content, that consistent messaging. From your salesperson, marketing to product development, you want to ensure that everyone is consistent on the key messages you want to communicate at that virtual trade show. So I recommend creating a one-page cheat sheet that you can review with everyone before the event begins. Includes sample questions and answers, You want to include frequently asked questions. In this way, your booth staff can copy and paste the answers quickly, leaving dead space as you type in responses. You want to eliminate that dead space. And you want to make sure everyone is answering in the same way. You want to make sure that you have that consistent, uniform message on all your products. You're going to want to assign roles. The temptation, of course, is to have every one of your staff people selling the virtual exhibit. However, one person may be better at answering the technical questions, and another can handle questions related to pricing. So when you're scheduling people to work the virtual trade show, make sure to include folks from different disciplines and clarify their roles accordingly. Assign one moderator, and then that person will be responsible for monitoring the group chat and controlling the flow of the people to specific virtual staff members. The other thing you want to do is you want to generate some excitement with a little bit of news, just like a physical trade show. You want to create a reason for people to come by your virtual exhibit. Schedule a time when you will announce a new product. Schedule a time to announce a partnership or a certain service that you're going to be offering. You can hold a 30-minute text-based press conference within your booth with key executives, inviting members of the press and customers to attend. Depending on the platform, you can also make relevant materials such as press releases, photos, and a video related to the announcement and make that public right at the time there. Let's talk about follow-up, because in any trade show, for hardcore trade show or virtual trade show, you're going to have to do some serious follow-up, because that's what it's all about. It's all about getting those results. So what do you need to do to follow up? You need to act on the information that you've received. You need to act on that information. Develop a lead form from every show you attend containing vendor names, products, and contact information, as well as follow-up notes that you'll want to consult after the show. You'll want to try and learn how to build a lead form, and there's some services out there that you can use to do that. But if you go to Exhibitor Magazine, they usually have a lead form called Lead Forms You Can Count On, and it kind of tailors it to the industry. And then after the show, you need to identify if your objectives were met and share those objectives and what you learned with your coworkers. Take the time to follow up with any of the connections you made at the show, and over time evaluate whether or not the cost of attending that show was actually giving you good return. Did it develop good sales relationships? Did it develop and generate leads into sales? This will help you guide your next trade show experience. So with that, I say to you that you can go online. You can check this out at greatgarmentgraphics.com. This webinar will also be on YouTube. You can check out on greatgarmentgraphics.com about registering for our next webinar, which is how to decorate different types of apparel, which is going to be June 14th, 2012 at 2 p.m. I thank you very much for your time. We can answer any questions, should there be any questions.
Actually, Colleen, I don't see any questions at this point.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks very much for everybody's time. I hope you enjoyed.
Yes, and thank you for coming. Have a great day.